Last night, SGA looking to put it away. He had a game-high 33. So SGA, or should we call him MVP, and the Thunder win their 11th straight, 119-103. They are the second team in history to win 50 games by double digits, joining the 71-72 Lakers. That team had Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West and won 69 games and the NBA championship. It is considered one of the greatest teams of all time. This OKC team is probably not getting enough attention for what it is doing this year. Alan Hahn, the historic, and I have a whole essay coming up a little bit later this morning to put into perspective the history this team is making. We know they're the best team in basketball. Right now, they may be even better than that.
Yeah, when you think about the amount of wins that they're putting together, what they're doing at home, the fact they've only lost to an Eastern Conference team one time this whole season. I mean, that is incredible, the year that they're having. But as we all know, you're judged by now what you do with these great seasons. Can you get that championship? And we all know the 73-win Warrior team was not able to do that, and they'll always have to carry that.
Marcus, I was telling you in our meeting this morning, I covered the 96 Bulls, the team that won 72 games, which at the time was the record, at the time was the first team ever to win 70. And they had a mantra, basically, that started in December, which was, it don't mean a thing if you don't get the ring. So this regular season has been brilliant. But is this your pick to win the championship?
It's not. It's not. This team, it's not deep enough, right? You have to talk about the depth. You have to talk about the guys that actually been there. When you talk about the lights, it's way different, right? This team has been healthy all season. They have a young gun that they have brought into the MVP of the league and has been playing out of his mind, right? What happens when they double team him? Who's the second guy? Who's the third guy? Who has experience to go to the guys when it gets a little rough, right? They've been playing really well this year, really well. There haven't been a lot of downs. But what happens when that happens?
They are going to be the second youngest team ever to be a 1 seed since seeding began. The only one younger was themselves last year. But they did go through a little bit of a playoff run last year. They won a series. They lost a tough one in the second round. That's not enough experience in your mind for them to go through whatever it's going to take to get through the West?
Definitely not. Let's go back a little bit. I was on the Boston Celtics team, right, when Jason Tatum was a rookie, when Jaylen Brown was in his second season. We got to the Eastern Conference Finals and lost against a LeBron James team, right? That's getting down to the mix. That's getting your feet wet and seeing what it's like to get to the mountaintop and getting knocked down and have something to prepare for in the second season. They do not have enough guys that's been through that.
All right, we'll talk more about that as we go. Shams, in the meantime, let's put into perspective what this franchise is, what this team is right now, and one person who deserves a lot of credit for it.
Yeah, Sam Presti and that Thunder organization, I don't think gets talked about enough in terms of how you put a team together. It doesn't happen just overnight. They get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They've drafted really well. Chet Holmgren, I think last night, I don't know if we showed his highlight. He might have been the best player for the Thunder last night. You watched how they played. But 2 moves they've made over the last 4 years. One, drafting Josh Giddey. That allowed them to go get Alex Caruso. And then another move that went way under the radar. No one looks at it. They traded Trey Mann, Vasilije Micic, and Davis Bertans for Gordon Hayward. And at the time, everyone was like, oh, they got Gordon Hayward. They got Gordon Hayward because they had an expiring $30 million contract. What did that turn into? Isaiah Hartenstein. So they've been able to draft well. They've been able to add to their team, and they still have dozens of first-round picks, dozens of swaps, dozens of second-round picks. If they ever, down the road, wanted to go get a big gun, potentially.
And we'll see if they wind up doing that. They may have the biggest gun in the league right now in SGA, I understand.
Sure.
But maybe go pair him with somebody. Holmgren had 22 points and 11 boards, to your point, last night. We'll have much more on the Thunder and the entire NBA picture coming up as we go. But I want to go to the NFL because we got Shefty back from the owners' meetings, and I want to play a game called Shefty Says with the draft 3 weeks from today. Shefty, the Tennessee Titans are picking number 1. What do you say?
More and more it looks like Cam Ward is going to be the pick, and the longer this goes on, the more it looks like they're more inclined to hold on to that number 1 pick rather than trade that number 1 pick. And Brian Callahan, the Titans head coach, was in Cincinnati when the Bengals drafted Joe Burrow number 1 overall. He knows how important that number 1 overall pick can be, and the Titans think it could have the same type of effect on their organization. We'll see if they decide to stick there.
All right, the Cleveland Browns picking at number 2. What does Shefty say?
Look, I know there's a lot of conversation about quarterback at number 2, Greeny, but it certainly feels like it is trending towards an Abdul Carter selection. Now, look, there's still 3 weeks to go before the draft in Green Bay, 3 weeks from tonight, and a lot still can change. but they spent a lot of time with Abdul Carter. Their owners even went to his private little workout at the Penn State Pro Day in State College a week ago. It just feels more and more like Abdul Carter's trending that way, which leaves us to the Giants at number 3, and a lot of people wondering whether they would go quarterback. But it just feels like there hasn't been a lot of Shedeur Sanders talk at 2 or 3 lately. And if, in fact, Cam Ward goes 1 and Abdul Carter goes 2, that would set up the real possibility that Travis Hunter could wind up going number 3 to the New York Giants. He would give them the type of star power that they lost when Saquon Barkley went to Philadelphia, would help fill a need. Yes, they'd love to draft a quarterback. But as we've talked about on this show and other shows, how high of a grade do they have on Shedeur Sanders? Where is the value that they assigned to him with the 3rd overall pick? Is it worth it, or is Travis Hunter too good to pass up? And the more you hear and the longer this goes on, the more it feels like Shedeur Sanders is more unlikely to go at 2 or 3. And we then will have the biggest question on draft night. Where will Shedeur Sanders go?
Let's dive into that for a minute here with J-Mac and Harry. So, guys, we were talking about this morning, and there's an interesting way of looking at it. Because we keep asking you, our producers will ask the analysts, should the Giants draft Shedeur Sanders? And your answer, Harry, was, well, if they love him. Well, that's, with all due respect, a pretty obvious answer, right? If they love him, then of course they're going to draft him. Here's the question. What if they like him? You know, do you, it's sort of like, you might date someone that you like, but do you marry them? When you draft someone at 3, you are making a commitment. Do you draft a quarterback because you, quote unquote, need a quarterback at number 3 if you merely like them but don't love them?
No, if you just like them, you can't do it. You have to take whatever defensive player is on the board at that time, whether that's Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. And the reason why I use the word love, Greeny, is because, see, you've seen that movie Love Jones, right?
Oh, Nia Long.
That's the kind of love it has to be with Lorenz Tate and Nia Long. You have to be infatuated. You have to be mesmerized by that player. If you aren't those things, then you better take that defensive player at number 3.
For a second, I thought he was going to start singing the way he got into it and the emotion. And I agree with that. But I also think the last thing Shefty said is we're still 3 weeks away from the draft. So for the New York Giants, you still have his pro day or showcase coming up. You still have an opportunity to have private meetings with him. I still think there's time to fall in love. Because, Greeny, as you say that, hey, it takes a while to know whether you want to marry somebody or not. You have to go through that dating phase and have those touch points to see exactly who this person is. So for the New York Giants, yes, they've studied the film, they've watched him, they've been around him a little bit, but I think there's still time for them to fall madly in love with him, and at that number 3 spot, still possibly pick a guy like Shedeur Sanders.
See, there's so many factors in all this to me, Shefty, because and the pro day and all of that stuff is this week. It's tomorrow, right? In Boulder, and it's about as late of one of these as I can ever remember there being, for whatever that's worth. But there were so many factors in this, because you've got the coach and you've got the general manager and you've got the owner, and we know how upset he has been with the way a lot of things have gone, Shefty. So it feels like there are a lot of things swirling around the Giants at number 3.
Well, here's what I would say. The Giants have spent a ton of time already around Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. And to me, I don't know what would come up this late in the process that they haven't already known